Hello, welcome to the 101 on FANVENTURE creations. My name is Chuyo, also known as Mr. Chuyo on Twitter, and creator of Welcome to Doomplace. I
I'm
present you.
Baqly. I don't know what I make, but I do a lot of stuff. So hi, nice to meet you all. Oh my goodness, I'm so fucking excited for this. Oh,
Hi, nice to meet you. I'm Moon. I make old Fiji water, and I love to draw.
Hello, I'm Coffee Cats, also known as Coffee Cats 900 on Twitter. I work on Out of Control, and I'm very hype.
Coffee, you were muted a little bit at the beginning.
Yeah, I don't know why
she
I
wasn't
was.
muted. She wasn't muted.
Nah,
Oh, okay.
I was.
It's all good. Okay, your turn, C.
Hello, I'm Sissy. I also go by Z. My Twitter handle is clownfucker with a C and an R. I share the same handle on every website. I love to draw, and I'm the biggest Gamzee apologist.
Hey,
Of course you are.
they are charm. They are wonderful.
Oh.
Mhm.
Oh,
I also work for Tsuyo.
I mean, all of you work for me anyway, so I don't know.
We're the
Well-
entire Welcome to Doomplace team. Come on, man.
God.
Gamzee writes, I believe so as well.
So let's get started.
Yeah,
Okay.
anyways, we get to know each other and all that stuff. I think we can start.
Yeah. So welcome to this panel. The name of this panel is the one-on-one adventure creation. Basically, we're going to go over like the detriments of like creating a story of like team making, and what advice we give to other people that are going through the same effort as we are going currently.
So anyways, let's begin with the first topic of creating a story.
I'd say it's best to start with an idea. If you don't have at least something in mind or a universe established, at least like get it all in like a nice pile.
Mhm.
That's kind of what I did. I had a bunch of like little notes and little flashcards, and I wrote down all of my ideas and I just kept them.
Yeah, I often find that starting with a lot of ideas and sorting through them is your best option because let's all be honest, your first idea is not usually your best.
Definitely, it's not the best.
Totally.
Mhm.
Normally,
I
it's
agree,
better with a
not
sketchbook.
always.
Yeah.
What I
Generally,
do,
what I recommend when making a fan venture is like remember that your first fan venture is not going to be a really good one. Like it's generally just like a starting process. So don't try to make it the biggest adventure that you can make because
Mhm,
that's just going to end badly for you.
I can agree with.
All right. So
I would say also one more thing. So, what was I gonna say? I was gonna say that you can like make a bunch of different ideas and try to see what could be the coolest one to make.
Mhm.
That's
also,
basically what I do.
It always helps to just ask your friends what they like too.
Yeah.
I always think it's always good to have a second eye on what you're making and stuff.
True.
Yeah.
As well, you
Uh.
should keep in mind what interests you. If you're making a story that doesn't interest you, why write it at all?
Yes.
Yeah.
Because of cloud, of course.
Shut up.
Everybody wants to be a little bit famous.
Yeah.
I'm very famous inside this niche community that no one knows. Okay.
Yeah.
So,
Don't even hide it. Don't even hide it.
yeah.
You know
Let's
you want to be
continue on-
popular.
Let's continue on with plot writing, which is the part that I hate.
Oh yeah. This is gonna be a
If
fun
everyone
trip.
loves to plot.
Don't worry,
My plot,
Coffee.
it doesn't exist.
We got your back. We the lore creators got your back, Coffee.
Yeah. Plot can actually be one of the trickiest things, as many people here understand, and many people in the chat probably understand, but it is the skeleton of your story. Without it, you can't add the meat of the story, which is what we all really want, let's be honest. A lot of the ways that you can improve your plot is through by researching other ways in other books and other medias. You can do traditional studies on things like the hero's journey, the 4-act story, or other common plot structures and writing processes.
Generally, when you're generally making a plot for your story, it's good in. It's a good idea to keep in mind to like the themes that your story is going to maintain. So what you're trying, more specifically, why you're trying to make your story and why is your story important to you. So
I imagine it would be a good idea at this point to maybe establish some things that you want to have reoccurring in your story, like Moon with the flower motif.
Yeah,
like
it's one of my
and
favorite
girls.
things.
And
girls,
Especially the
women.
girls.
And clowns.
Yeah,
Clowns.
and clowns.
You know,
Women,
that's the
clowns,
trifecta. You know,
flowers.
clowns, and girls.
Yeah,
My
we got it all.
flowers do
We got it all.
monsters.
Well,
Monsters?
Yeah.
And Joy.
In Welcome to Doom Twist, there's like giant flowers where monsters come out from there.
oh yeah.
Yeah, don't you
how
remember?
could you forget about the flowers?
I
God?
do
Yeah.
remember. I love how they do the little flip before they come out.
Yeah, I really love doing that animation.
The three genders.
It made me discover that making an animated panel can be also done in Flash. Because apparently you can export it as GIFs. But anyways, this isn't about monsters, this is about plot.
So when also keep in mind, even in non-serious stories, it's still good to have like an outline for what you're making because you're still like taking those scenes. Like even in non-serious stories, you're still learning how to become a better artist about it. So it's important to still maintain like have a rudimentary idea of what you're going to make, and at least have an ending point. Because a lot from what I see, a lot of the stories I see created in MSPFA and things akin to that are stories that like have a beginning, but they don't necessarily plan an ending. So they feel like they go on for like no reason.
Yeah.
So
I want to say something about plot. What can I say? I would say, don't try to make a cow, dude. That's it.
You alright, Suyo?
Yeah.
are you going to explain?
I'm trying, but
Something that I can speak about specifically in plot is conflict. You're going to want to actually ask yourself what type of conflict is happening within the story and the motivations of both the conflict and those who are within the story. As well, you can also research tropes, genres, all sorts of themes that you can implement into your story.
I would like to mention, even if you're wanting to write a slice of life, it's still important to realize that even in those kinds of stories, you're still going to have a conflict. I think some people realize that, some people think that, even though, our story is, really simplistic, it's just about people, I don't know, living on Alternia or whatever, it still does have to have a conflict.
So
Usually.
we have this planned, the conflicts in literature. Yes, the image is a little bad within the presentation itself, but this is talking about different aspects of conflicts found within a story. So you probably heard this in English class. I'm sorry.
it's pretty accurate.
Very accurate, though. It's a very good thing to keep in mind when you're making a story.
Yep. Like, for example, in Welcome to Doom Twist, you have to fight for reality because this is spoilers, but you know what happens there.
No.
It's
Anyway.
not a real thing. It's just a TV thing.
It's not a real comic. It's not a real
Studio
comic.
versus reality.
Tetsuyo is not real. Tetsuyo has just been in a coma for the last 9 months. Tragic.
If I look at it a bit, I would say, yeah, it basically everything from these squares is in Welcome to Doom Twist.
Yeah. Well, generally those are very present within the creation of stories, even if you're not conscious of it.
Yeah,
Like
but
man versus
literally.
nature. Yeah, definitely.
Speaking of Welcome to Doom Twist, I think it's a very good example of world building because that's a huge focus in the comic.
Yeah.
This is honestly what got me driven to the story in the first place entirely, is that you have this entire world set up. And honestly, that could be a good starting point if you wanted for your comic. Maybe you want your own unique world, like in Doomtless. And that could be a good starting point too, but everyone needs to remember that world building is important. Even if you're working with Alternia, and you're oh, if I just say it's Alternia, everyone will know what I'm talking about. honestly, I love the stories that expand upon Alternia and have a ton of world building itself.
Oh yeah.
Or stories that try to make their own, like it's world building. It's always good, even in like the most rudimentary of environments. People like you can like it's the saying of show don't tell. You can tell people to that this world is like raggedy and horrible, but like if you don't show anything that showcases that point, then the reader is not necessarily going to be invested into that topic because it's not necessarily something that's going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
Another good thing to ask yourself is how is your main character or your characters in general going to affect this world, and how is this world in general going to affect them?
Yeah.
It could also help you develop them in general when you ask yourself these questions when creating your characters.
Yeah.
Moving on to character writing, which is something I know you people love. You love friend sim, you love fan trolls. We're here for it.
I'm not.
Fuck.
Well, you're the odd one out here.
Fuck! I love
I literally make so many characters. God.
Here's the fun thing about
that's the
character
best
writing.
thing ever.
Characters, while we do love them, we do love the dress they put up and the fun that they give, they establish a role within a story. They're the pawns on a chessboard. You need to accept the fact that characters ultimately have a purpose. And with that, you need to establish your character and their themes around that purpose. There are things such as the protagonist, the antagonist, the deuteragonist, the tetrary characters, and the foils. These are all types of characters that can help create an incredible relationship both with the environment and other characters that help drive the plot.
Also, like something important to keep in mind is what kind of story you're telling. So, for example, there's some stories that want to focus inside of the world, the storytelling part of the story. I repeated story 4 times in that sentence. But basically, those stories want to focus on the world building and what the world represents. So generally, if a story is focusing on the creation of like the world, characters aren't necessarily that important, but like they still need to complement the world building itself. Like both parts have to work with each other. You can't have like a character that's like incredibly nice or something. You can. It just has to be done well. Like
specifically, as someone who writes a comic with a singular main character, I really like working with character foils. Any way that I can take advantage of the characters around me in my story to add on to my character is always a good advantage to me. Also, what were you going to say, C?
I actually wanted to say that you don't actually need to make characters appealing to the audience. You can also write a douchebag or someone you would actually despise in real life. Just make the character good and a character you would personally see in your story.
Yeah.
Honestly, some of my favorite kind of characters are those that are absolutely despicable and unforgivable because people are so they're so hesitant to add them into their story, but like, damn, maybe I just want a character who I hate unconditionally.
Like a Blessy.
That's actually something really fun I do want to talk about. With antagonists, we often find people who love villains, and for a really good reason. When you create a villain, you have to get some really, really deep complexities in both motivations and the way in which morality works in your narrative.
Yeah.
No, that narrative is actually, it does affect how morality is. We know that things that are evil on Alternia are much more different than here on Earth. So again, you need to fit within your narrative. And because of that, it does add a layer of complexity into your story. Villains are ultimately fun because you have to think about them.
Definitely.
Totally. I would recommend not doing the making a character bad just because there needs to be a bad any way or another. I usually give it a proper reason of why he's bad, or like try to Also, I want to recommend one thing about making characters. Don't just stick with the same main characters just because you think that would be cool. Because, and also don't kill them like Mr. Hussey did once.
when Mr. Hussey just created a bunch of characters that he didn't want to actually write,
Yeah.
so like he just killed them in murder stock.
If you that, you're a horrible father. You just killed your own children.
Depends.
And
It
it only
depends on the kind of story.
and only because you
we do
don't like him.
We do actually see people in the chat. I'm looking at the chat right now. I
Let's
know
see.
you guys love to kill off characters. Don't worry, I do too. But something I do have to make clear is that when you kill off a character, it should have intention and it should have weight. And
Yes.
Creating a character with the sole intention to be killed can often feel lackluster, and it can often feel without much motivation. I do believe we call this fridging, in where a character exists solely to be killed as a motivation for the protagonist.
I feel like you're calling me out.
That's right, we're calling you out, Boogs.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, like when the story making, like I don't know, characters are important, so you can just create like off characters just to kill them because you'll be doing what Transformers did.
Yeah.
No one wants to do that.
One thing I will also say is how to point it out. Don't add characters after, I don't know, 3 chapters. Like, if you have one main character, don't change it suddenly with another main character.
Oh yeah, like
that'll make it weird.
Your story has to be
Not without
focused.
good reason.
Yeah. Unless
Your
you
story
have
has
a
to
good
be
reason.
focusing.
Like in Homestuck.
Unless you wanted to make a comedic entrance for the other character, because
Yeah,
I did that in my comic.
I remember that actually. That was really funny.
Like, for example, the Alphonse in Homestuck, like, there's kind of a good reason why there are new characters and all that stuff. So I will point that out as a good way of inserting new main characters. Then there's the K-Raps. I don't know
For
about
me,
this
like
K-Raps.
for me, when it comes to like when that shit happened, I necessarily didn't feel interested in the new characters because I wanted to like that's the problem with introducing a new cast of characters when there's a previous already preset cast. It's because the reader is already invested into the main cast, and when you're asking them to get invested into another cast, it can be really hard because you don't necessarily want to see them and you want to see developments in the new story. That's one of the main problems I find with Access, with the creation of the story itself. Okay. I think we
can go on.
Anyway.
From there, we can actually move on to themes of stories. So let's say plot is your skeleton, the world building and the characters are the muscles and skin. Now, themes, here's the fun part. It's what outfit you put on your little weird story corpse.
Do you think that like color palettes could even count as like themes if you stay consistent with them?
Definitely. I think that themes also play into visual identity, and colors and color psychology is so important to your story.
I want to point out one thing, kind of off topic, but I managed the stream really badly, so sorry if I changed the screen with no reason.
It's fine.
Anyways, move on.
Yeah, themes is very important to have within the story. Just having repeated patterns that you see within the story, like how Moon was saying, like the flowers. That there's like a. Can you explain it better, like how you were doing your themes inside your story itself?
With Old Fiji Water, specifically, while the story is very early in development, we've had our bumps in the road. I specifically use flowers as symbolisms because I personally adore flower language. For those who are unaware, flower language is an old form of language, and where when you're giving someone flowers, the type of flowers that you give them does actually have a form of communication. And I've used these types of themes to be able to communicate with my reader what various things mean.
I personally use themes more in like color palettes and like what colors make you feel, and underlying messages in my stories and music, because I'm not very confident in my writing, but I feel like if I can influence how they feel through the music, I can at least help push forwards what I'm trying to communicate.
Yeah, I will say one thing. I would like to mention the themes I use in WTD, but most of them are spoilers because one of them is a big smile and the other is a giant tree. But
of course,
Because
think
giant
there can
trees
be
are
like
cool.
writing themes as well, like with characters.
Who doesn't love a
specifically.
giant tree?
I
And
love
there's a
giant
fun part
trees.
to put about themes is that it can have multiple themes. It doesn't even have to be visual themes. I understand that there are a lot of people who form their stories around an auditory theme, a lot of really nice music.
Oh, sound motif. Sound motif.
Yeah. And it could be things like flowers, it could be things like digital references, pop culture references, or,
Yeah.
I know, you know how it is.
So
Nothing.
So
Fuck.
that also leads into making a satisfying story because along with that, the themes is like just a little tiny bit in that whole big package essentially. It's how you can tell your story and controlling the anticipations of the readers while rewarding them for reading. Honestly, when I'm writing out my story, I kind of think like, what would I want to see? And I kind of go through it. I'm like, did I find this funny? Did I find this entertaining? If I didn't, I'll just scrap the entire idea or some. A lot of times, I ask my friends. I'll tell them the entire story I've planned out, and I'll ask them how they feel about it.
Yeah.
Definitely don't go on a whim though.
yeah, definitely. It's important to like the mind of like cliches and all of that. Like what kind of things like should your story repeat and your story should do, because when like for example Homestuck, there's a lot of FANVENTUREs are based on Homestuck, so there's a lot of cliches that were found inside Homestuck that were repeated in the creation of adventures. These are very unsatisfying to see. Be it the naming gag at the beginning, it's kind of annoying. Or just generally repeating jokes. Yeah.
Generally. And another thing about wanting to reward your readers for reading is being able to control the mood. I do see this a lot, and it is something that not a lot of people are able to grasp. Not in the sense that they don't do it themselves, but when they don't feel satisfied with the story, they're not able to understand why it wasn't satisfying. Controlling the mood is one of the essential parts of making a satisfying story. You've got action-filled movies where the action never stops and you get desensitized. You don't care for the energy anymore. Or you have boring stories where there's no energy and nothing exciting ever happens. It's your job as the author to give the character both that rest and that peak.
That's why one of the reasons most movies have like a specific layout that they go with. Like calm at the beginning to lead up and then goes down, it becomes calmer, but then they high up and the little scoop that probably
Yeah,
Even English
a classic
class is
plot
actually
structure.
important.
So
another thing is that when you're writing a story, you need to make sure that everything you put in front of the reader does have purpose. I know we love to make extra stuff, but when you're putting something in front of a reader, they will remember that. And if it does actually mean something and it does become significant later in the story, the reader will feel compelled to want to remember more things and become more dedicated to the story because they're rewarded for remembering and noticing small details.
Yep.
And even like stuff like filler, I know a lot of people tell you to like stay away from filler in your stories,
it
but
depends.
as long as you make it important and like stuff like that, it can be good. I think filler is a very good opportunity for world building.
Yeah.
So like if I wanted to tell more about my unique Alternian world, then I could use some filler to show what life is like on this version of Alternia and just show the smaller details that I was not able to show in the main story.
I think one important thing to have in your story is a sense of purpose. Like when in a plot in a story, when characters are doing something, or for example, they have to get a goal, and at the end of the goal, it doesn't actually mean anything to the total goal of the story. It feels like wasted time, the readers and the characters, because they were like leading up the whole story for a unfulfilling ending. So it's important to like have for your story to be goal oriented. It can have like moments of like calm or nothing is really happening, but if there's like a really ongoing plot, you have to have a purpose for it,
Yeah.
even if it's something like mental.
I will say that making filler. So how to say it? I'm not very good at speaking about filler stuff, but if you're making like a spoof and adventure, don't make the characters go directly to spoof. That's kind of a really bad move, and it's something I don't really like
Yeah.
to see.
Oh
Like,
yeah, and the thing when people say like in the first chat the characters the people are
yeah,
talking about the sport, like
yeah,
no, yeah, you want to make a sport
that's
comic.
actually filler. Making them interact, that will be filler, and that will fuck. That will give us an explanation of how their characters work.
Yeah, no, I'm referring to like in the first chat where people are saying, are you ready to play the game or like things akin to that.
Yeah.
That's
Like,
the fun thing about fillers is that fillers are things that just don't actively contribute to the plot, but can still expand upon things like character personalities and world building.
Something that is personally important to me is that making characters relatable. I don't like it when I can't personally relate to a character even in a small way. Even like the most hateable characters, like the villains we said, I still like them to be slightly relatable, even though they are completely like abominable in every way. Even like small ways, like in the like, does this character like nervously like hold their hands? Like just even like small things like that, like their speech patterns, even them like slightly using slang that like sometimes I use. I like being able to relate to the characters that I'm reading about.
yeah.
Of course. And you know, when you want to ensure that your story connects with people, everyone wants to feel seen in the stories that they read. You never want to look at a story and not be able to empathize with it. And I find that's personally why you should consider who your story connects to. If you find that it only connects to a certain set of people, you should definitely expand your palette. You should go out and you should apologies. You should go out and definitely, you know, see different things, learn new things, connect with different people so that you can understand the experiences of other people so you can connect with them in your writing.
Anyways, I think we already say a lot about world building, right?
Yeah, I guess so. Something,
We
yeah.
find world building.
The last
Wait a
segment.
I'm stupid. We were done with the world building for a long time. Fuck.
Yeah.
You're good. You're good.
I'm so stupid. Anyways,
of
moving
course.
on.
Another thing you'll want to do is know your start to finish. We all love to just get right to the get-go. I have an idea, let's jump on it. But I really do think it becomes more satisfying of a story if you can know your start, your middle, and your end. So you can have intent and direction when you go into your story. That's what makes a story strong, is intent and your ability to build upon that.
That's why there's a lot of problems with stories not like having a beginning but not having an end. Because when you don't have an end, you don't necessarily know where to go from like the story, and it feels like a loose idea of what you're making. You know?
Yeah.
Would it be, let's
Speaking of
say,
my own,
like, the story is supposed to be like kind of made on a whim, like intentionally? Would it be alright if the story doesn't have like an ending?
and yeah, it's fine, but
Yeah.
like it's different when you're like the problem with not having an ending is that you don't necessarily know where to go from like a topic. Generally, when you're writing a story, you have a beginning and end, and the middle is what the main part of the story. Generally, that's the main part. But like, if you don't know, like, okay, so what the character is doing right now, what is the end goal for all of this? Like, you don't have to think of like a far length, like just having arcs, even arcs, just having a small arc of what the character is doing at the current moment. It's important for you to have in a beginning and end. Like,
Another
Of
thing
course.
I want to point out. Oh,
Yeah, please.
oh, I was gonna say I don't like it, and this is gonna sound really weird, but maybe it's because I've watched way too many TV shows. I don't like it when stories have a happy ending all of the time.
Yeah.
I actually enjoy it when stories have a very conclusive, hard, bad ending. Because I don't like the idea that like everything always ends out good in the end. Is that
Yeah.
weird? I kind of
no, I don't think it's
because
weird.
I'm going into animation. I'm an animation student. I love actually to go for these things. You're thinking about the difference between like Disney writing and Pixar writing. Disney writing specifically has this very upbeat, light writing where it always has to have a good end. Pixar in particular does actually have this idea where the ending should be realistic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And again, there's something I want to make clear to the entire crowd. As we're talking about what we like and what we don't like, the important part is to know the rules to break them. Nothing we say is solid, so we're just giving the fundamentals of how you can start your story. If you know your rules and you know how to bend them, please, that makes the story all the better.
Definitely.
Totally. I will recommend one thing. For your fan adventure, if you want to end a fan adventure, which most of the time it's kind of weird to see a fan adventure ending, like don't make it a good ending. Like if you are playing Spur, don't make it like you win and you'll go to your new universe or some shit. I will like try to give it a more original way of ending that story, and not trying to copy what Homestuck did, huh?
Yeah, I think like generally don't try to make Homestuck again. Just don't make Homestuck again.
Yeah.
If you're satisfied with your ending and you think that was the ending you wanted to have in your story, do not let your fan base like sort of like bully you into continuing the story. If that's where you wanted the story to end and you want to leave the rest up to speculation, that's where it should end. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise.
Also, make sure that
I
if
mean,
you're
unless
willing
like
to,
you really messed up or something.
make sure that
Again,
if you
know the
want,
rules to bend them.
I can talk. Okay, make sure to know what you're doing if you're gonna do a bad ending, because that could be really controversial for your little community.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, let's move on. So what we're actually going to talk about is a webcomic's role in presenting the story and its visual identity. Now, here's a really fun part. The reason why we almost never see the way in which Homestuck stories and FANVENTURES are presented in comics is because it actually is more of a storyboard style. And because of that, we can actually look at film theory. You can look at the way in composition affects your story and in how shots affects your story. Do you guys want to give some examples of shots that you can use in your story?
Yeah, panning out. Like for example, like Homestuck is a very good example. Like, it's basically you're making a storyboard but comic based.
Yeah.
So like a good shot will be like, for example, when the character is looking down into a large pit and it makes you scroll down to see the large pit. It's a very good shot, like a very good framing, because it makes it so the viewer's eyes are basically the camera scrolling down into seeing the bottom. It's a very good example of like visual storytelling.
One thing that specifically bothers me, and I say this because it is something that I constantly have to stop myself from doing, but when you are making panels, if you can help it, try not to constantly have frames where it's just one or two characters standing there in like a background and there's like nothing else. Try to make it more interesting, show the depth of the world that they are standing in, establish the shot. Don't just have person A and person B standing there looking at each other.
Shot back to shot. You know, the thing of like the shot back, it shots to a person, then it shots to another person, shots back to a previous person. You know, that's the kind of thing, like a boring visual storytelling. Like
you can do it as like a gag, and you can do it normally, just don't keep doing it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Of course. That's actually an aspect of timing. If you're going to get into storyboarding, and I do recommend if you're going to be making Homestuck webcomics, you should get into storyboarding because it is the perfect go-to for these kinds of things. But the more panels that you add, the more implied time is being added to this situation. More panels you have, the slower it feels.
Definitely.
And especially with film theory, what we can talk about are the types of shots and the type of air that they can bring in. Extreme wide shots, that tells you about the world. It encompasses the entire environment. Wide shots that show your character within the environment. It shows how your character acts and has a relationship towards the environment. Medium shots, this is currently the shots that you'll see in a lot of, say, dating sims. It feels very personable. It's at eye level. You see the person from the chest up. Close
Those are
up.
my favorite.
Yeah, let's talk about that.
Yeah.
It's like really close up and personal. You can show exactly what the character is feeling, and especially with like very specific lighting that I like to do, you can literally show the expression of the character like completely in what they're feeling. Color theory is also important as well. It's something that I'm trying to perfect with comics. It helps me like practice it while I'm working on my comic. It'll help you like give your story a stronger visual identity and color palette.
A good thing to keep in mind when making like a Homestuck comic is to remember like it's a practice method. You're learning how to practice how to make a like it's very like if I'm being serious like by learning how to make FANVENTUREs you're learning various segments of the like film industry. Ironically, you're making like learning how to do shot composition, color theory, and like color color keys basically.
Yeah.
So like
Yeah.
Don't you ever
Especially
do
when
like
you're
200
working
blood
on a
colors?
team.
That's weird.
I was gonna say, especially when you're working on a team, you want to have a specific style set up. So like when we're all working together, Welcome to Doom Plus has a specific style, a color palette, and sort of the way the lines go. And my comic has a completely different style. It's more lineless. It has a very purple and blue color palette. Having these specific things that all of the people are working on that know to like establish and always do when they're drawing panels is very good.
Anyways,
Of course, yeah.
we should keep moving because we don't have much time to do this part.
Of course. Do you want me to just blitz through it? I can absolutely do that.
Sure.
Go to the speed run, please.
Okay, so what we're going to be doing is talking about designing characters. When you design a character, you have a theme, you want to build upon that theme. You also want to make sure that you have a recognizable design. You can do that through various means. You can perform clear silhouettes, you can have color psychology that fit to your character, you can enhance the themes that you're talking about. Something else you really, really want to make sure that you're doing with your characters is you're being organized. You need to make character sheets. You need to make prop sheets because no one wants to be the person going through their characters in their old Discord DMs looking for references. Moving on with that, you want to ask yourself with your comic, how are you standing out and how are you fitting in? How are you using your comic and asking yourself, what makes me different than a million different fan ventures? How can I use my talents to make myself stand out? And how can you use the pre-knowledge that people have of Homestuck and FANVENTUREs to subvert people's expectations?
Definitely. I think studying a lot of previous works can help you make a brand new work.
So another thing people love talking about is flashes in particular. Flashes and music and coding your comic. These are very technical things I don't very know much about, but you guys, can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, when me and Studio are working together on making flashes, specifically, usually there's one person putting together the entire flash, but there's a ton of people making the art. I say for me, what I've decided was the easiest way is to make a piece of artwork and have separate layers for everything that you think would move. So the legs are going to have separate layers. The torso is going to be a separate layer. The head is going to be a separate layer. Arms is going to be a separate layer. The foreground, middle ground, and background are all going to be separate layers. And then you save that as a PDF and you hand it to the person who's going to make it the flash. As an artist, that's what you should do.
I would like to add some things. Well, when making a flash, what I do is trying to have an idea of what I'm gonna do, like what kind of story I'm gonna tell in that flash. Then what I do is wait for one of my musicians to make a track for that flash, because you will need to synchronize the flash with the music, and because of that, then after getting the music, you shall do a storyboard. You know, do all the panels, you know, the movements, then the assets, then the animation, and boom, it's all done. The flash is perfectly done in like a week, and that's pretty much it.
What I've noticed, the storyboard is maybe one of the most important parts. You need to make a storyboard. It is so important.
Okay, moving on.
Of course,
moving on.
yeah. So actually, one of the topics that we're going to talk about that I know you guys love, and it is the essential part of fan ventures, is your relationship to Homestuck. When you're making a fan venture, you have to ask yourself, why is this a fan venture? What is my relationship to Homestuck, and why do I want to make it? So there's a few things. You have to understand the themes of Homestuck and how it's the subversion of the hero's journey, and it's a coming of age story. It has a lot of digital references and a lot of very technical aspects to it. And especially knowing S-Burb, not a lot of people know the very fine intricacies of S-Burb. I actually took the time to print out the entirety of the Homestuck wiki. Don't do that. It was horrible. But it was essentially the idea of know the rules to break them. As well, with Homestuck, what you're trying to do with is either to fix what you think is broken or to improve upon what is not. Establishing what your relationship to Homestuck is really important because people already know about Homestuck going in. So can you subvert their expectations or can you fix what they felt is lacking?
Okay.
I will try to.
Generally, when we're making a Homestuck style comic like akin to this, it's good to keep in mind like style consistencies and more available like resources that you can be found. So like for example like the MSPFA server has very good resources that you can find for like style wise, like doing the style wise of Homestuck and learning like critique, etc. If you want to like get one-on-one help with your story and what you want to do, you can go to a MSPFA server and it will tell you like what to do.
I will recommend.
And I think from there we can talk about things that happen outside the story because they are just as important as the story itself. You need things like time management to know how to schedule, how to stick to a plan. You need to know how to work within a team and the leading versus following relationship that you have with your team. As well, you'll want to talk about organization. You're going to want to have spreadsheets, character sheets, and plans, essentially.
My favorite thing to work on when essentially like writing down everything my people who are working on my comic need to do is using a Google Drive because you can always go back and change it so you don't have to keep making a new like document to show them what they need to make. It's honestly really easy and satisfying to just write down all the panels that need to be drawn and what's needed to be done on a doc.
Of course, yeah. Another aspect is advertising, effective advertising, being active on social media, making sure that people see your comic.
MSPFA doesn't really have a good way to showcase like your comic to other people, so it's important to for you to advertise your comic and showcase like outside of social media. It's important to advertise your comic so people know about it because if you don't, no one is going to come and look at it.
Of course. And the final point I want to make is please take care of yourself. Self-care is so important when you're creating and working because creation is work and we all need to take a break.
Words.
Definitely, tell me about it.
Really important.
It's important to keep. It's also important to keep in mind when you're making your comic. Like your comic is not it's not as important as your health. You have to keep in mind like you have to take care of yourself before like you continue working on your comic because the comic is not feeding you. It's just a hobby, and even if like there's people like that are looking forward to it, if you're like hurting inside and you don't want to work on it, you shouldn't force yourself to work on it. Because at the end, the comic is going to suffer, and you are going to suffer.
Also, try to think that you're doing this
Boogs,
for
posting
fun,
4
not
pages
for
a day for 2 months is not ideal.
Yeah, that is way too much. And even I'm a workaholic. I'm a workaholic. I don't do that much.
Yeah.
That is the main aspect. That is the main part of this
Books
panel.
have been doing that.
With the last 10 minutes that we have, we're going to move on to a Q&A. We did have a form that we had for people to submit questions, so sadly we cannot.
Actually, we have
40 minutes.
Yeah,
we have 40 minutes.
It's not an hour. It's an hour and a half.
Yeah, we have 40 minutes. We reserved the first hour to doing the first half of our...
Yeah, we can still talk about outside of the story, don't worry.
Okay,
I should have told you.
No one let me know this.
I thought you knew.
Sorry,
chat. Hey chat, I'm sorry this is a disaster, but we are trying our best and this is a stream, so
yeah. Look, we have been doing great. I think we have been doing great. Moon, you're being the MVP of this.
I gotta keep it going. You gotta keep it snappy, my
No,
guy.
it's not a
Yeah.
disaster. We're doing
Okay,
fine.
we have them. Okay, so before we finish, some things we can talk a little more about the things we glossed over. So, team making, because this is the one-on-one and FANVENTURE creation on how to work with a team. So, when you're making a team, let me be honest, like you are the main goal, like the main driving force for your comic. No other people, like even if there's other people in your team, you're the only one who's making the comic happen. So
When you're like making a Discord server, because a lot of Discord servers for MSPFAs end up dying. As someone who's been managing servers for a very long time, you are the blood and soul of your server. You need to be able to be active all the time. Maybe not every day like I am, I'm a little insane, but you need to be very active or else your server will die. It does not matter. You cannot expect your fans to be active for you. You cannot make the server and just set it there.
Also,
and that's
get
what
some mods to avoid raiders, like what happened to me.
I think that's more like when you are like actually kind of big. Well, I've been dealing with raiders a lot, but I think it just depends on the, like if someone is very determined to ruin your day. But yes, you are the main driving force for a lot of the things you make. Not be it just the I'm trying to speak. Be it the comic that you're making or a FANVENTURE server that you're hosting, because in the end of all things, you are the only one who has the most passion out of the project. And if you don't show that passion to other people are not going to get interested because you're not tying them in. Fandoms create themselves when the energy of the creator when the energy of the people surpasses the energy from the creator. By that I mean is when the creator doesn't need to do anything for people to talk about the comic. That's when a fandom is created.
And also for advertising online, you will have to advertise your comic a lot. I would definitely make a separate account for your webcomic so that you don't annoy your general fans, especially if you're an artist, you're just dropping this MSPFA on them, like randomly. That might annoy the heck out of them, so make a separate account and then just be crazy on it. Go nuts.
Yeah.
Make sure everyone sees it.
Do what the region lockers did. Do what the region lockers did, and use it like your personal account. But anyway. Make it your personal account. Stop using your actual account. Become the comic itself.
Come.
Oh, actually, hey, I've got an incredible little piece of advice and a personal anecdote. For the love of God, your story, please back it up. If you have an entire comic, please do your best to make sure that you have 2 copies of that comic.
God, yeah.
I will tell you personally, I actually did not do that. I only had one version of my comic about 3 years ago, and it all got deleted in an accident. There were no backups.
Google Drive is your friend. Google Photos, anything that you can back up anything. Just do it now.
Back it up on Imgur images. Back it up in Imgur. Don't do it. Don't do that.
Maybe not amateur, but even microwave pipe. I call it microwave in my head, but microwave pipe.
I'm joking. For school projects, please, anything.
Because Suyo pointed this out to me recently, actually. Microwave Pipe, the place where you usually upload your channels to get the link, that actually stores everything. That's a great place to store your entire comic, actually.
Yeah, but remember also, it has a file size limit, so you can't, a size limit, but, it's, one that makes sense, Stash is a good option, I would say. But the problem with Stash is that it makes the links a little too complicated.
Yeah.
Some people use DeviantArt, some people use Discord. A lot of people advise against Discord, but I'm stupid personally.
I think
Hype.
Also,
Discord is fine. It's just as long as you're not hosting the comic itself on it.
Of course, yeah.
Yeah, that would be bad.
Oof. drink some
I
water.
think from there we can move on to questions.
Yeah,
Awesome.
5 minutes
Yeah.
early.
So from now we're going to move on to questions. We had a form that we had put out before this, but we will answer those right now.
Anyways, let's
Yeah.
move on to questions.
So here's a question from Baqly. They ask, what do you think is the most rewarding part of the FANVENTURE making process? Personally, for me, the reward is the process. Not only is it an indie environment that allows me to be fully creative with my work, exploration and experimentation is a really big thing for me, and webcomics like Homestuck pioneered this kind of explorative content. You guys?
My spirit. Fuck. Let me look over the question again. So, because I lost myself. Okay.
We've got it all on a big old document.
Yeah, we have a
I'm
lot of
screwing this
questions
up. Hold
organized.
on.
Yeah, definitely. What inspires me the most is like what's most rewarding is just seeing like other people's react to your own content, you know, like
Yeah.
just being able to like contribute to, just being able to see like people be interested into your own work is so nice. So it's incredibly fulfilling. There are so nice. Sorry, I was reading chat.
Yeah,
Hey,
we got
Baqly.
rant sonas. Oh,
We got rants on those.
There's no.
it's all fun and games until the rant sona crosses their arms.
Yeah. Hey Z, didn't you have something to say here?
I actually wanted to say that I believe the appreciation is the most rewarding part of the FANVENTURE making process. I love the comments, interactions, headcanons, and just the general discussions people have in my Discord server. Sadly, I haven't been as active lately due to school and personal problems. Though I believe the friends you make along the way are the most and best rewarding part.
At the end of everything, the friends we made out along the way was the most rewarding part.
Yeah.
And then up next, Lawful Neutral asked, how many main characters are good for fan adventures? I said, personally, it depends on the kind of comic you're making. If it's character-driven, then you should keep the numbers very low since you want people to get seriously attached to them. But if it's like a spur adventure, obviously, it kind of depends on what you're wanting to do. But if it's a spur adventure, then you could make it like quite a few, but I would definitely stop at 16. Stop there, definitely. That's my
Yeah.
limit.
16 is the hard limit.
Also,
16 is the hard limit.
Limit.
also, yeah, keep it in that, but also go wild with secondary characters because that's part of world building and it's something cool to see.
Yeah, like
course,
remember, just don't try to. If you have a lot of characters, you don't try to make every single character have equal screen time because that's not possible.
Yeah.
Story wise and mentally wise, no one is able to think about every single character possibly like at the same time. So just don't.
Yeah.
Oh no, Larter.
Of course. We can go on to number 3. Asked by Boogs, what's a good way to hook people into reading your adventure as opposed to a million others? For this, I actually answered, one aspect of the writing is standing out from the crowd. By consuming content that interests you and identifying why it interests you, you can implement these aspects into your story alongside effective advertising. Another question we got from Sweater Moth is, what part of making FANVENTURES do you think is the hardest or most time-consuming?
Me, it's writing. I'm just bad at it. I have a hard time thinking about it. It's not good for me.
For me, it's definitely scheduling.
Yeah, for me, it's scheduling too. I think like just being able to like, I have a lot of problem in dedicating myself into like working into the project that I'm doing itself. So it's really hard to, put time into it and put time into working into the project itself. I know you guys don't have that issue, but I have it myself. Okay, so
The hardest thing for me, what will it be? I don't think there's anything hard. Just some parts that are more difficult than the others. I will say the plot definitely because there are some parts in my FANVENTURE that doesn't seem quite right, and for some reason it it suddenly changes to another thing, and I guess that'll be a really hard one for me.
For next question by Clyde, it was, how important would you say it is to know what you want your fan venture to accomplish? For example, what mood it creates in the reader and what impact it has in the community. For me, mood is my top priority. Since writing and me are not friends, we do not get along, I am very reliant on the mood of my story. I use music and art and all that good stuff to make sure that the mood, at least, is established to the reader.
To me, intention is essential to writing a satisfying and interesting story. It's the direction and the motivation that builds the story. Another question from Jester Frog.
Let me answer it. I wanted to finish that answer. Okay, so I think definitely one of the most important things to maintain in your story is mood, because well, like we talked about before, it's important to maintain yourself with goals and ideas of what you want to make. So like having an idea of like, okay, so everything's going to have this mood. It's going to make it easier for you to organize your thoughts and the ways that you're going to go about it. And also, it's a good way to limit yourself into making the story itself. When you limit yourself, you can come up with more creative ways to create something. You know. So I think it's very important.
Of course.
It's incredibly important.
That is a great point, actually.
Mm-hmm.
Anyone else have anything to say on it?
No.
All right, so then we'll move on to the next question. This is a question by your friend Roxy or Jester Frog. They ask, any advice on how to pick up a comic after being away from it for a bit?
I specifically said you need to at least force on yourself to work on it a bit, especially if you have issues with procrastinating. At the very least, make a panel a day. Try to make one panel a day, or write one plot point a day. If you could do that much, it'll make up for the lost time. I promise you.
Definitely.
Personally, I said setting aside time in your day to work on it is a priority. Even if you don't finish in the time given, you can work into making it a habit.
I think it's very hard advice to give because I also have that trouble for myself. But I think it's important to try to just do it. Like to just try to like do it slowly. Try to start slowly when you're working on the project, but just continue. Just put a little time of it each day, and that time will pile up into becoming a good update. So
also, I will say that if you are like, how to say it, if you aren't able to work on your comic, then I guess you don't need to, because if you fuck, I'm making.
No worries. I think I get what you're saying. A comic is a hobby at the end of the day, and if you don't want to work on it, you shouldn't have to. But if it is something you want to work on, you should be able to work on habits that let you work.
Yeah. Like for example, my old comic Spurbo Omega, I stopped working on it because like it started to being really annoying, and I couldn't find a moment to keep working on it and still having fun with it. So basically, I canceled it and move on. Then WTD happened, and then I am unable to escape from that. Don't regret it though.
Yeah, I think.
I think we can move on to the next question.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So Goblin asked, "You're chosen to work on a comic, but you're not allowed to use the talent you're known best for. What other talent do you pick?" I know Z had an answer to this one.
Yep.
Yes. If I take myself as an example, I'm not very good at.
As for me, I'm a jack of all trades, but generally I would rally behind environment design.
For me, I think writing. I think I'm quite confident in like the writing method I use. So if I wasn't able to work on that or on art when I'm making a story, I feel like working on writing will be fulfilling.
The hard thing for me, I think it'll be like. Oh yeah, it'll be having to imitate a certain style and not being able to like express yourself. Yeah, that'll be one.
Yeah, definitely.
I don't know what I would be able to do. Like, if I think I would struggle a lot if I wasn't able to do, like, my main thing, making panels would be pretty hard for me, honestly.
Also, one thing I will not be able to be comfortable with is that is that oh shit, I had it in my tongue, but I forgot. I'm so thankful.
No, you
No
have.
worries.
What
Yeah,
do you
you
have
can-
in your tongue?
See, this is a fun little lesson. Is that
Yeah.
by increasing your skills and getting a lot of variety of skills, you can still do things even if you can't do the one thing you're known for.
Definitely.
It's important. Yeah, try to expand your comfort zone. Like having a comfort zone, like just having like trying to do things outside of your comfort zone is very helpful for various reasons. Just for example, um, learning to do new things and also not doing the same thing all the time.
Yeah.
Here's the fun little question if we can move on to it.
Yeah.
Is that all right with everyone? So,
Yeah.
Anon actually asked, "Happy Pride Month."
And
And
we
you know
answered.
what?
We answered.
And
with
we
this.
answer.
We answered.
Happy
So
Pride
you-
Month, everybody.
Yes, do you?
Happy Pride Month.
They want to
Happy
get ready.
Pride Month.
Happy
In
Pride
this
Month.
house, we love and
Wishing all
support.
LGTB community a wonderful day, and a month, and a year, and a full life.
No, never.
What?
Yeah.
No!
I'm joking. I'm joking.
You made me yell in my bird's ear. I wasn't ready for that.
Bye, gay people. Bye.
Did I say something wrong?
No,
One
no.
of my main
funny.
selling points for Old Fiji Water specifically is I refuse to write anyone who's cishet. So, happy Pride Month.
Yeah,
Amen.
definitely.
Amen.
Don't-
Amen to
Never
that.
write a
Amen to
cis
that.
head. It's boring and lame.
Literally, like, every character in my comic is, like, is not cishet in some way.
So we can, I think from there, we can actually move on to the next question.
Yeah.
Question.
Cheshire Creeper asked, how should somebody plan out to divide up the sections of a fan venture?
So specifically using Welcome to Doomplus as an example, because it is a good one, you should change acts when the setting and characters change completely. Specifically, like, moving from Doomplus to a different, like, place where Suyu's at. Also, it's important to change acts when something very big happens, like maybe a character died, maybe they finally started playing Spurb, something like that. I kind of like
Yeah.
to imagine it like seasons in an anime.
Yeah, you can have the chapters. Chapters are just like perspective changes, while like a season is like a major change that happened within the story that showcases the new step where the story is going. You know, like where we were talking before about how the story should have like the lead up and all of that. That lends itself well to like the segments of the story. Which act should have the lead up and which act should be the calm one, you know? Keeping that in
Or-
mind when dividing your story is important. But like, yeah.
Of course, and actually what I answer to this is that is an aspect of writing best studied. Acts could either mean literal acts and form along the 4-act structure, or it could function like chapters, which acts like a pinch point or a twist or a notable event in a story, along with the surrounding events or the lead up and after effect.
Or, and hear me out, or maybe the comic doesn't have them at all.
Whoa.
Oh,
That's
crazy.
a risky move there.
Whoa.
Should have banned. No more acts. One
Dang,
story.
Coffee.
No more acts.
No more.
All in one
It's
go.
a singular. It's a singular story.
I would recommend
Damn,
trying
Act
not
1
to
is
use
really
the.
long.
I would recommend not trying to use the act format. Like, you should like
Don't do one Homestuck deck.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I forgot to say my motto for this panel. Don't try to make Homestuck. Try to make problems loot.
yeah, yeah. Actually, yes.
Yeah, because like Homestuck has a problem of like going on for way too long, and the story like end up so, like not really having a really good ending. While Problems Loot has like a beginning, a middle, and an end. Don't be
Alright.
Homestuck. Don't be Homestuck.
So let's move on to the next question from Fimo. It says, hey, I don't know if I can ask this question since it's more technical, but how do you make sprites? And are there any tips on the making of the environment of the room, like the room, everything in the background, where it's placed, that kind of stuff?
Like I said before, the MSPFA server is a great resource to have, and just there like it's every single answer to that. So
Of course, yeah. And I actually answered on a technical level, it's important to rip apart the manner in which Homestuck simplifies its designs to create sprites and understand the symbolic language it attempts to present. Though, when it does come to environmental design, I think that it comes from studies of real life environments, environmental storytelling, and composition. Also, quick tip, because not a lot of people actually know this, Homestuck rooms are generally drawn on an isometric grid.
yes and
Yeah.
no. They are drawn
Actually,
in an
no, it
isometric
isn't.
perspective, but they aren't necessarily like guide to it. So like you can use an isometric perspective to how to draw the characters, but don't go like use line tool to keep yourself into that.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Anyway, just go to MSPFA server, go to resources, go to Drat's critic zone, and you'll learn how to do a Homestuck style character in 7 minutes.
Yeah.
Homestuck sprite speedrun.
So for the next question by Tangy, it says, any character design pro tips that may or may not be obvious? My answer was that always make sure you are keeping things simple. Not that you can't make complex characters, but mentally be prepared for that. You are going to have to draw the character over and over and over and over. You do not want it to be an agonizing pain in the butt to draw the character. I promise you, it'll make you want to stop working on the comic altogether.
Definitely. A general idea to keep in mind when you're making a character is to have a clear silhouette, a simple design, and a simple color scheme. Because like Coffee was saying, you're going to have to draw that character up to 100 and 1,000 times depending on how long your comic is. So when you have to draw the characters, little details every single page or 100 pages for like the continuation of the whole comic, you're going to get really annoyed at drawing that character. Or if they have a lot of colors, and so you have to color pick every single color every time you have to draw that character, it's going to get annoying. The main reason the character designs in shows have very geometrical shapes and are very simple to draw is because they have consistency. And with that consistency, you can draw the character really fast and easily because that's the method that you're going to use for animation, and that's the method that's going to be done for every single story. Another tip to keep in mind when a character design is being made is to think of like how the character designs complements the world building, and how does the character, the way it dresses, how the character ways of looks represents the story itself.
I believe you had an answer for this.
Huh?
For question 11, I believe you had an answer for it.
Yes. You always need to remember that you need to be happy with your design. It should not appeal to the general audience. It should only appeal to you. Though it is smart to have a basic palette and some colors that work well together, like in color theory. Color theory, yes.
Yeah, your character should also complement the background. Your character shouldn't look ugly.
Yeah, of course.
Just make a good look in the character. Just make a twink, okay?
Make them sexy.
Come on.
Just make a twink.
I was able to answer this. My answer to this was to try working on a character design out in thumbnails and see how to push your design to make it more recognizable. Draw, and draw again until you begin to drop what is not needed and exaggerated what is essential to their design.
Okay.
Right. The next question was, what's your process for coming up for characters' names?
I do have an answer for this, and it is the funniest thing because you're probably going to expect something frilly. It has actual science behind it. So, see, this is a fun one. Character names both relate to the subject and theme, such as the many Homestuck troll names relating back to astrology, and you can do this via cultural or thematic inspiration. But also, to take into consideration is the Baqly effect, Looking over this, even without cultural connections, certain names can hold an effect on a character. I intentionally named one of my characters Blippet Poppet, with both the Poppet dolls in mind as a cultural reference, but also the verbal way in how it sounds soft and bubbly, which highlights her themes as a character.
Wonderful character with a wonderful name.
Also, I wrote it on the whiteboard. You can see the Kiki and the Buba.
Yeah. The way in which these words are pronounced can actually be associated with shapes and designs.
Mm-hmm. So remember,
Alright.
Buba is round and Kiki is sharp.
For the next question, it was from Ganam. What's one character that you're very proud of creating?
Well, speak of which, I love Blippet Poppet. Love her or hate her? You will remember her.
My favorite was Zaraeus. Well, obviously, I think she's my best written character, and I really love that everyone always constantly tells me that she really feels like a person, and that makes me really happy.
Mm.
My favorite will be definitely Rose, because he's the one with the most lore in all Welcome to Dumplings. And besides, I really have enjoyed drawing him being in, spoiler alert, Dream Bubbles.
Oh,
Oh.
one character I'm actually really proud of creating is Xenar. She's a very bitchy kind of fish. Her actions should not be tolerated. Though she has the most developed personality, most developed background and future, and I'm kind of excited to tell them soon in my own comic.
All right, so the next question by Shani or Abstract Verbal is, how and when were you first exposed to Homestuck for the first time?
For me, Minecraft, I will not elaborate.
For me, it was Nepeta and Carcat fan art that was forcibly shown to me back in early 2012 or 2013.
For me, I read on Spite.
For me, it was definitely Undertale.
Oh yeah, Undertale too. I read Homestuck out of spite after telling me it was not a good comic.
Yeah.
For me?
See
Can
how
you guys say something?
Yes. For me, it was back in 2016, I believe. I googled zodiac signs.
Oh,
and
no.
I saw the first one I saw for myself was Terezi, and for my best friend Tavros. This was the first time. I still remember I called Tavros ugly. That I know.
No. He's a handsome boy.
And the second time was when Old Mutual posted about Gamzee, and I think that was the first time I actually fell in love. I read it only for Gamzee.
And Clown Fucker. Anyway.
It was the
Love at
beginning
first sight.
of my own character development.
It's your Joker arc. It's your
Became
Joker
clown.
arc.
Exactly.
That
All
moment
right,
you
the
became
next
clown.
question is by ERC is, what inspires you? My answer was my friends in my community. Their excitement keeps me going. Honestly, if people didn't interact with my comic, I would not have any passion to keep working on it.
My answer is girls.
Booby.
Mine is pure spite.
Mine is definitely the theories and the arcs and the conspiracies, because I really love giving a dark lore to my stories.
For me, it's the love for my own characters. I love to discuss all the different lores and storytellings from other people, as well as some kind of theories. Although I only get them from my own best friend. Though it's very entertaining to guess what will happen next. This is what inspires me the most.
Alright, so the next question is, what's the best way to make sure you get a countable amount of suggestions or commands by Lavender Siren?
For me, I've noticed this after studying a lot of commands and when people did actually give commands and when people didn't. You need to set a scene. Make sure there's a lot of stuff in the room. Before you open commands, always set the scene. Always have it full of crammed full of random crap. I don't care if half of it isn't interacted with. You need to make sure there's actually stuff for people to work with. If you have an empty room, no one's going to give you commands. You have nobody but yourself to blame.
And also remember, you don't have to rely on commands to make your story progress. If you don't receive the commands that you want, you can always just make the commands yourself. I remember Coffee, you said something like into like making another like alt account to give you the comments that you want, but yeah, but you can always just do the comic that you want. Like, just remember, the comic is yours and yours only. So don't let yourself be limited by the commands that are being given to you, and if or no commands are being given to you.
I think we need to move on. We don't have a lot of time.
Yeah.
Well, we have a little. Well,
We have 10 minutes.
10 minutes.
yeah. So we are going to rush through the like final questions for everyone, and then we get to Tetsuyo and he answers his.
Okay, this will be quick. Okay, this one
course.
question was asked for Mar. Mar. What did inspire you to create the fan adventure focused on Baqly and company, specifically Baqly? Well, there was this other fan adventure that I worked on named School Omega, like I said before, where it was basically the same thing as Homestuck but with different characters and other stuff, so it was pretty lame. The comic was cancelled because I lost motivation, like I said. There were trolls for the story and I really wanted to use them in some way. The first thing I did was dump through Tumblr memes. The second thing I did is on funniest scenarios, and then I started planning out a universe aside from Alternia to use these trolls properly. And the rest is history. Second question is also made by Mar. Also, we know how that Shuyo is now the lead main character, but was it already planned to be that way since the beginning? Well, it was planned at the beginning of Roland's debut, because I wanted to make something interesting, and so it started developing into this side story we call Tape Quest. What inspired you to make WTD? Asked by Jade. Well, I guess the idea of being able to work again in a fan story, and because I wanted, and because I wanted something to do in my free time. I think it was also thanks to a conversation I had with an old friend where they were talking about a deep society below Alternia, where blood colors had dark shades, and there were even black blood trolls. So that was kinda an inspiration to it. Anon asked, how do you work out blood holes? I sketch them out in my sketchbook and decide what will suit better to the story. I would love to mention some of those blood holes, but they are top secret stuff. Who's your favorite troll? If so, why? Architelos. My favorite troll is Truros, like I said before. Definitely one of the best characters I've worked with yet. Love Truros, he's the only one with deep lore. How do you make an asshole protagonist still likable to the readers? I believe I can answer this question. I have never created an asshole protagonist that is likable. Will we ever meet the other 6 trolls, or are they cancelled and Chuyo's Tapes quest is a cover-up for something greater? Asked by Anon. You will, but the more you complain, the more pages Tape quest gets. Anon, what was the biggest inspiration to WTD? I don't think I got a proper answer to that question, but I'm gonna see Boku no Hero Academia. When will the story progress to the troll side? Asked by Chaos. When Chuyo gets the freaking second tape, duh. Okay, now it's time for Coffee to ask her questions.
Sadly, Coffee did actually have to step away for a moment, so we will be moving on to Bach's questions.
Oh fuck. Okay, Baqly.
Wait, so basically for me, let me look back at my questions because I already answered some of them. So like,
one of your first questions is, how important do you think is viewer participation?
I think viewer participation is depending the kind is important depending on the kind of your story you're making. So by that I mean having ways for your readers to interact with the story in some way, or to see how their actions are affecting the course of the story is very gratifying. It can also invest the readers into your story if it's done in a certain way. But viewer participation is most importantly like your own choice, and it depends, and if you feel it's necessary for the story. So if your story is not like doesn't necessarily benefit from the suggestions that you're being given, you don't have to follow those suggestions. Or if you feel if your story doesn't fit what is needed, then it shouldn't be. You shouldn't do it. It depends on the story you're making, but I think it's important to do it if you're making a suggestion-based adventure. Okay, guys. So, I already answered these questions. Any,
So I guess
any
we can
kind-
move on to my questions.
let me just go over really quickly any characters assigned pro tips that may or not be obvious. Like I said, keep a clear silhouette, simplify designs, and a simple color scheme.
Yeah.
Now we go to you, Moon.
Of course, yeah. So one of the questions that I got asked was, how do you get good at world building by lawful neutral? It's all about consuming a wide variety of content and information, learning and appreciating a variety of topics from architecture, culture, biology, art, history, and even entertainment and media from a diverse range of people that can help you build not only your bank of reference, but also identify what aspects of life you want to put into your writing. And the second question that I got is, how do you manage to stay motivated to keep producing content, even especially early on before you get a following? And this was by Dude Master. Honestly, I love learning to love the process is it's essential. Appreciation of improvement, the excitement of reaching your goals, and studying to lessen the burden of the difficult aspects of creation help you develop a rhythm of work and creation. Creating what you love comes from learning to love the process, and from there you root yourself to become powerfully flexible and give yourself future improvement unlike any other. Coffee is back. Coffee, would you want to answer some of your questions?
Good. In the
I would
perfect
love
time.
to, thank you.
Your time.
So, the first one from an anonymous person was, what does it take to create a comic and keep it compelling? Personally, I think that you need to enjoy what you are making. All good comics are always made by people who enjoy making their comics. If you truly enjoy what you create, then your passion will reflect onto the audience and they'll love it too. From Dukin, it said, how many DILF characters are you planning to have in Out of Control? The comic is made on a whim. I cannot give you a really good answer at all whatsoever. Last comic by Freenan. Do you accept all the responsibility for all the universes banned due to Studio? Reminder that your FANVENTURE was the beginning of everything. Yes, I will ruin more universes. You cannot stop me.
The blue universe for everyone. Okay.
I believe that is all.
Yeah, that's pretty much
I
it.
really want to thank everyone for coming to our panel. I really hope you have a wonderful time and enjoy all of the other panels.
And I want to say something. You guys unlocked this. I
He's the
discovered
only-
something.
He's the only good character.
I
So
discovered
thank you,
something.
guys. Sorry.
Bye.
Anyways,
So,
Bye.
were you?
guys, we didn't record this part.
Oh no.
Anyways, thank you so much for watching it. For some reason, the scene where the ending panel was kind of could cut out our voices. So I'm just gonna be here saying that thank you so much for coming. This was kind of a disaster, but because we were try
I
hard
enjoyed
too
it.
much.
I enjoyed it a lot. Thank you
Yeah.
for
It
everything,
wasn't
though.
really a
So
disaster.
yeah, we
Y'all are just really. I'm gonna get both of you. It was fine.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry for everything, though.
no,
Thank you.
it's okay. It's
No, you
okay.
guys are fine. Stop it. You guys are big babies. I'm gonna get you. I'm gonna
Yeah.
love and cherish you, and you all are gonna implode.
I thank you guys for everything, and thank you for everything that we have made, and look forward to more. Welcome to your mom content.
Yes.
So-
Anyways, that's it. So thank you so much for watching, and bye.